Hello and welcome back to another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I did 11 years in prison, and I talk about prison stuff. Today we're doing a Q&A because I said we would, and you guys always ask me a bunch of really good questions, and I like to answer them. I have my comments page open on the YouTube studio thing, and I'm just going to go down through here. Some of these I've already answered. However, just because I answered them doesn't mean that somebody else didn't have the same question. And, so I'm going to answer it so everyone can get my answer. And I apologize for the flies buzzing around. This is Kansas in the summertime. We have a lot of bugs. But let's get to it. Infinite Canadian asks, how do I like Loverboy or Bachman Turner Overdrive? Yes, I like both those bands. Loverboy, I kind of have to be in the mood to listen to Loverboy. But Bachman Turner Overdrive, that's just like that classic rock that I can listen to anytime. They have a lot of great hit songs, and I really enjoy them. So yes, I really dig those two groups. XZ asks, can you tell more prison rape stories? Maybe. To answer that, because YouTube doesn't like a lot of shocking content, and I try to keep stuff, within the YouTube's community guidelines. And a lot of that stuff is traumatizing for some people. I know a lot of people who watch me have experienced trauma in the past, and I don't want to have them relive that trauma. Rapes happen all the time in prison. It's an ugly thing. And it's not really something that I'm too keen to talk about, because it's kind of a sad thing in my opinion. I hope that answers your question. Maybe, I'm talking about prison legends and stuff, and there's a guy that I'm going to talk about in the future named Bohannon. He's basically a notorious prison rapist in the state of Kansas. There's actually more than one of them. They're brothers. But I might talk about him a little bit. I'm not sure yet. I hope that answers your question. Deadly Tarantula Girl asks, why did I eat the cigarette in reference to the music video that I just did recently? Now, some people thought that I was actually smoking a joint and I ate the roach, because that's a pretty common thing to do. However, that was actually not what I was doing. It was a cigar, and I ate the last bit of the cigar. To answer this question, it's an homage to one of my favorite movies. There's a comedy western that was made in, I think, the 1990s. It's called Lightning Jack. And there's a scene in the movie where Lightning Jack, this old school outlaw, is trying to teach this up-and-coming outlaw how to be tough. And he said, when you're looking at a man, you have to look right through him. You can't let them tell that you're scared. You can't let them see that you're scared. And the guy's like, well, is that what you do? And he said, me? No. And he lights a match on his face, lights a cigar, takes a big drag off the cigar, and then pops like half the cigar in his mouth, chews it up. And he said, no, I'm just that good. I thought it was a really funny scene in the movie. And I started smoking cigars at a pretty young age. So I've actually been doing that for years as a party trick. Now, Dirty Pat Walsh, he's known for chewing on his channel. He'll take a dip and put a dip in and chew and talk to his viewers. And I was doing the song with him. Now, I wanted to kind of also pay homage to Dirty Pat, because, his channel is really cool. It has its own vibe and stuff. If you haven't checked out that channel, I would really recommend going and checking it out. Pretty neat. But, I don't chew tobacco. And I have a problem with nicotine. I've tried to quit smoking a few times, and then I start again, then I stop again and start again. And lately I've been trying to quit again. And that's kind of what the song is about, trying to replace my smoking habit, because I know for a fact that smoking can contribute to my death over time, but I'm trying to take destructive habits like smoking and replace them with stuff like playing music or working out and stuff like that. Because as long as I'm doing that, I'm living my death. That's what that lyric was about. Anyway, I'm getting off on a on a few different trains of thought. I don't chew tobacco unless it's the end of a cigar. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to slip that homage to Lightning Jack in there. Thank you for the question. I hope that answered it in a long and excruciating way. Mike the Psych commenting about my prison hooch. She says, looks like fresh orange juice. How long will it keep for? Also, for the message at the end of the video, I say, tend to the part of the garden you can't reach, if that makes sense. That's good advice. And to answer the question, how long will the hooch keep for? It'll keep for a long time. Its flavor profile will change over time because as more sugar in it is converted into alcohol, it will start to taste more like a dry wine or something like that, or a dry mead. But it will keep for a very long time, months, perhaps even years if you bottle it and store it correctly. Thank you for the question. Angela Netherton asked me, why were you in prison and why so many times? I actually have a video about why I went to prison. I believe it's called Attempted Murder at 17 years old. I kidnapped and shot a guy who was a pedophile. And that's the short version of that. And the second part of that, why so many times? I'm not so sure what you mean there because I've only been to prison once. I was in several prisons while I was in prison. You know, I was transferred place to place. But I've only had one charge. I have one charge on my record, and it is the aggravated kidnapping. So I've been to prison once. I'm actually pretty pleased that I only have one charge on my record, and I haven't been stuck in the revolving door where I'm going back. My co-defendant, Jake, actually just got arrested, and he's on his way back to prison for a violent offender registration violation. You know, in Kansas, you have to register as a violent offender if, you know, you commit a violent crime. And all of us guys who are on that case, we have a lifetime violent offender registration. And if you mess up on just one little thing, then you're looking at going back to prison. So he messed up on updating something on his violent offender registration, and they scooped him up, and now he's looking at a level 6 felony for that. Anyway, thank you for the question, and we're moving on. Jeffrey Hinman, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I butcher any names in the making of this video. It might be Hinman, Heineman, but I'm going to call you Jeff. Where are you located in Kansas? Now, I probably shouldn't share my personal information on YouTube, but as part of being a violent offender and a registered violent offender, my address is public knowledge, so I have no problem telling you. I am in Kincaid, Kansas. I live right behind a bar, and matter of fact, I apologize for any background noise that you guys may be picking up right now because there's a cornhole tournament going on outside my house. That's how you know I'm in Kansas. But Kincaid is in southeast Kansas. I would really say that it's eastern central Kansas, but everyone around here calls it southeast Kansas, SEK. It's one of the worst places to live in Kansas because we got a bunch of tweakers who will rob you blind. But that's where I'm at. It's close to Fort Scott, close to Garnett, close to Iola, in that area. And if y'all are ever in Kansas and you want to hang out or have a cup of coffee or something or go fishing, holler at me. Of course, gas is kind of expensive right now, so, you know, but we'll figure something out. I got a big old fire pit in the backyard, and, you know, we can go out there and watch a fire, share stories, sing Kumbaya, all that good stuff. Thank you, Jeff, for the question. Infinite Canadian asked me if I have ever heard of Joe Morello. He was talking about, you know, I've said that I drummed before, and I do like playing the drums. I do need to get a kit. Still working on that. Found a guy who was selling one for a couple $100. So if I can come up with a couple $100, I think I'm going to get a drum kit. But yeah, I have heard of Joe Morello, but I have not really listened to him. As far as I know, he's, I think, a jazz drummer, and he's known for odd timing, odd time signatures and stuff, which is cool because I had a jazz/funk drummer in my band in prison at one point, and he was probably the best drummer I've had. And it added something really, really unique to the music that I was making, which was metal. So I will check him out, though. I will check out Joe Morello. I haven't listened to his stuff, but I will do that and let you know what I think. Gang Squad XVX asks, did Big John ever prey on other inmates or try his rope tying shenanigans on anyone in prison, or did he only go after small children? Seems like a true monster in every sense. As far as I know, he didn't prey on other inmates. However, when I got to prison, he'd already been there for 20 years. I don't know what his early incarceration was like, so I can't really tell you on that, but while I knew him, he didn't really prey on other inmates. Other people did do those rope tying shenanigans, though. There's a guy who was actually a friend of mine who did time in Oklahoma and Arkansas. He was actually in a big prison riot in McAlester, Oklahoma. And he tied someone up one time. He had problems with a guy, and they were locked in the cell together, and they were, he just acted like they were trying to play this game of who could escape faster. And he, tied this dude up real tight, and before the dude could escape from the ropes, my friend John stabbed him. And that was that. Moving on, though. I appreciate the question. Bill Barrett, and this is a question I've answered. He asks if I agree that ADX Florence detention is cruel and unusual punishment and is therefore unconstitutional. He's talking about the 23-hour lockdown, Supermax facility. I believe it's for the federal system. Yeah, I don't really agree with long-term segregation. I don't know what the great alternative to it is, but I don't agree with it. I think that it is very much unconstitutional. At one time, if I remember right, long-term segregation was actually banned in the United States. I believe it was a really long time ago, but, they brought it back, and it's been like that for a long time. I don't think it's right. It makes people go crazy. It makes people do some stuff that they wouldn't do otherwise, and it really doesn't prepare them for release. You got to remember that most prisoners are getting out. Even guys with life sentences are getting out because they have an indeterminate sentence, 25 to life or 30 to life or 40 to life. And after they serve 25 years, they can see a parole board and, they're back out. So if you take a guy and you lock him up, a guy or a chick, because they have long-term segregation for women too. But if you take a person and you lock them up for 23 hours a day and you do psychological harm to them, and you're not really preparing them for reintegration into society, and then they get back out into society, you're kind of priming them to mess up and come back to prison. I don't think it's right. At the end of the day, even people in prison are humans. Now, granted, some people are very crazy humans. If you think about BTK or Big John, people that I've spoken about on my channel, they won't return to society. So what do you do with people like that? Is it okay in that case? Is it ever justifiable to cause, severe mental damage to a person or mental harm to a person? That's not up for me to answer. So I don't know. I don't agree with it. I don't think we should have long-term segregation, but I don't know what the good alternative is either. So there's that. Dave Horton asked me a really good question, and I answered this briefly in the comments section, but I'm going to revisit this question because it's a good one. Dave asks, how do we balance punishment and rehabilitation? How do we as a society decide the proper options? And at what point is a decision made where a person could be considered, unable to be rehabilitated? Those are great questions. I'll start with the first one, how to balance punishment and rehabilitation. as an individual, I can't answer these questions. I can't speak for society as a whole. But I'm going to give you my opinions on balancing punishment and rehabilitation. I guess we need to look at the goals of the criminal justice system. Is it just to protect society? Is it to punish people? Get retribution. That's what I think of when I think about punishment, is retribution. You hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back. Is that one of the goal of corrections? And if it is the goal, that's fine, but we need to state it that way and start acting like that's our goal and stop pretending that we care about people. Because it's kind of weird if we're talking about, oh, we're going to make the world a better place by being cruel to people. If we want to be cruel, if that's our goal, we just need to say that and move on with it instead of putting up a front. However, if our goal is actually rehabilitation, why are we stuck in this retribution mindset? Is there a way we can move past that? I think there is. I think that solution is probably up to brighter minds than my own. There are people that study these problems. There are people that look for, solutions. There are people who come up with really good options. And I think that we need to rely on those people instead of just going with the fear that is instilled by media regarding people who commit crimes. If you ask a lot of people who commit crimes are the devil. We're the bane of society. When in reality, we're just folks that messed up. And I think that in part answers your second question as well. So I'll move on to the third. At what point is a decision made where a person could be considered, unable to be rehabilitated? I don't think they care sometimes. I really don't think that they care. However, they do have a system in place where they can send you to a mental hospital for a civil commitment, and they do that with a lot of sex offenders. However, that's towards the end of their sentence, whereas I think that people should be evaluated before they ever go to prison, because what if there's an option that's better than prison for certain individuals? Some people who have mental illnesses or something like that, do they really belong in a prison? Because I've known a lot of folks over the years who were in prison who weren't all there in the head. They had learning disabilities or they had social issues, stemming from a psychological disability. They couldn't speak. They may have had problems forming meaningful relationships. I think those people need to be evaluated before ever going to prison, because you're taking someone who's already having issues psychologically, and then you're just like, okay, well, we're going to throw you in there with a bunch of, violent folks. I don't think that's right. But it's weird that we leave it up to, usually one or two people, maybe a handful of people, to decide that a person can't change. It's strange. And then we have to wonder if people are qualified for it, and I don't know how to make that decision. I really don't. There are people who are trained to evaluate people, but those aren't the people who make that decision. Not in the United States anyway, not in Kansas. That probably needs to change. I know I didn't answer your question exactly, but I answered it to the best of my ability, because that's a very, very difficult topic to find an easy solution for, because I don't think there is an easy solution for what you're talking about. But I appreciate the question, and I hope that gave you some insight, at least into my opinion as someone who's been through the system. Eliza Marie, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, you can, give me grief in the comments if you want to. But you've been subscribed to the channel for a while, and I appreciate you watching. Eliza said, hey, bro, my brother finna do life in KDOC. Got any tips I can give, bro, or who to try and stay away from? Yeah, I have tips. That's That's a great question. It's an important one. A lot of people go to prison every day. So I definitely thank you for that question. The biggest thing is to study the lay of the land. Watch what's going on around you. Don't get in debt. Keep to yourself. Don't get involved in politics. And what I mean by politics is don't get involved in a gang, because that'll get you in trouble real quick. Don't tell on people. And that's a big thing with minding your own business, because you could be a very loyal person who has a lot of integrity. You might not have a snitching bone in your body, but if you're not minding your business, people will accuse you of that, and they will put that in your jacket, and you don't really want that. Be respectful of others. Stay clean. That'll make things go really well with your cellie. And study the lay of the land. Don't hang out with young guys who are trying to prove something. That's going to get you in trouble every time. Instead, look at the guys who have been doing a lot of time for a long time. Guys who have more than 10 years in. Those are the dudes that are going to point you in the right direction, because after being down for a while, they've figured out how to do time. And they'll point your bro in the right direction. Stay away from fake friends. A lot of people are going to try to buddy hustle him when he first gets to prison. And what I mean by that, hey man, what's going on? You need anything, let me know. They're going to act like they're your best friend, even if you don't know them. And it's just a hustle, man. They just want to get stuff out of you. They're going to want crunch. They're going to want coffee. They're going to want stamps, all that stuff. Just tell them no. And don't be rude about it. Just, tell your bro to hang to himself for a while until he's established. And hang out with old heads if he's going to hang out with anyone. Hang out with guys who have been around for a while, doing what they're supposed to. In fact, I'm going to give you a couple of names. If he goes to Lansing, tell him to look for a guy named Ormond Wimberly. He's an older black guy. I think he's in his 70s now, a good friend of mine. And Ormond's been doing time for a long time, and he's helped a lot of people since he's been down. So have your brother look him up and try to get in contact with him if he goes to Lansing. If he goes to El Dorado, tell him to look for a guy named Nathan Hill. He's probably in his 40s by now. Black dude, big glasses, wears a beard. He's a part of the Muslim call-out. He's another good friend of mine, and he's a good guy. Both of those dudes are upstanding individuals. Another dude that could help your brother out if he goes to Lansing is a guy named Todd Deal. He's a tall white dude, about 6'6"-ish, 270 pounds, big old beard. Or last picture I saw of him, he had a big old beard. He's a good dude. He can point your brother in the right direction. But if your brother goes to Lansing, there's a lot of good options there. He could be a part of Brothers in Blue. It's a Christian organization of inmates in the facility. It's a good program. And he'll meet a lot of good people in that program if he wants to get in that. And I believe Lansing still has a lifers program. So try to point him in that direction, because those are decent individuals who can help him out. But thank you for the question. And I think I got time for one or two more. We'll see what we can get done here. Call Me Dave says, I have a question for you. You said once that when you were in prison, you were a part of a Christian group. Do you still believe in Jesus, and do you still worship the Lord? Well, to answer that question simply, no. I am not a part of any Christian organization. I am not affiliated with any Christian organization. I believe that the Bible has a lot of really, really good things in there, and I apply a lot of the things in there to my life. But there's some things with Christian theology that I don't agree with. There's some stuff that I can't wrap my head around it or make it work in a logical way for me. So, no, I can't call myself a Christian and feel right about that, I think I have a lot in common with a lot of Christians, but there's some stuff that I don't agree with. one of the biggest things for me when it comes to Christianity is the exclusivity of salvation. You know, I can't believe personally that all these people in the world that don't know Christ or haven't heard the Christian gospel or just don't know if it's true are going to suffer an eternal punishment. For me, that's something that I can't put my faith in. I believe that the creator, whoever that creator is, there's a lot of people who claim to know who the creator is. You know, the Muslims believe that they have the correct way. The Christians believe that they have the correct way. The Jews believe that they have the correct way. Everybody thinks that they're right. And many of them offer really, really good arguments for why their view would be right. And it is no difficult thing to imagine why people might have doubts about this faith being correct or that faith being correct. Because there's so many people out there with very, very convincing arguments. And for people to choose incorrectly and to suffer an eternal damnation for that, that just doesn't seem right to me. When I was studying theology, I was studying Martin Luther quite a bit, and there was something that Martin Luther said, and this isn't a quote verbatim, but he said at one point that the greatest act of faith anyone can show is to believe God is good. And so that's basically where my faith is. I can't say that I know who God is. I can't say that I know what God is or what the Creator is. But what I can say is that there's something greater than myself. That I believe. And I believe that that thing, whatever it may be, is essentially good. I think. Because then you have the argument of, you know, if God is all-powerful and God is good, why does evil exist? And that just gets into this whole big theological discussion, which I've written papers on it, and I could tell you about it, but this is a prison channel and not a theology channel. So we'll leave that for another day. But no is the answer to your question. And finally, this is an older question that I answered as well. Beach Girl asks, did Willie ever talk about his escape or any cool stories while he was out on the run? Yes, he did. I don't remember them all exactly. My brother knew Willie a lot better than I did. However, I do remember he talked a little bit about being in San Quentin and stuff like that. He hated the California prisons. He didn't like the politics there. He didn't like how, you know, everyone tried to force you to think a certain way. They tried to tell you exactly how you needed to do your time and who you could mess with. And he didn't like that. And he didn't like how rough it was. And that's coming from Willie, who is, you know, a killer. He didn't like the California prison system. Mostly the political stuff. Because the gang politics out there run a completely different way than they do here in the Midwest. But thank you for the question. And I think that's it for right now, guys. So if you want to leave a question for me down in the comments, I will answer them in the future in another video like this. But until then, I'm Eric. This has been another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I will see you all later.
Break these chains.